On the roads of Brazil, among dangerous curves, cold dawns, and kilometers of solitude, live men and women who keep the country moving without almost anyone noticing. They are truck drivers, warriors of the asphalt, accustomed to distance, silence, and the responsibility of carrying what sustains everyone's lives. But from time to time, these same anonymous heroes end up carrying something far greater than cargo. They end up carrying destinies. This is the story of João Silva, known among his colleagues as Foot on the Road, a simple truck driver like so many others, used to the harsh routine and the solitude of long journeys. That night, he was making another run along BR-116, a highway marked by danger, rain, and curves that do not forgive mistakes. What João didn't know was that before dawn, he would face one of the most intense situations of his life, a moment that would test his courage, his instinct, and his heart. Amid thunder, mud, and darkness, João heard a cry for help coming over the radio. A trembling voice, a family trapped on the edge of an abyss. Without thinking, he decided to act. And it was there, in the middle of the storm, that an ordinary truck driver became a symbol of something extraordinary, the solidarity that still survives in the human soul. What you are about to hear is not just a story about courage. It is about empathy, about the value of life, and about what truly makes us human. This is the story of João Foot on the Road, the truck driver who didn't think twice about saving a family. A real story, told from the heart, that shows that even on the darkest road, there is always someone willing to turn on the lights. The night stretched over BR-116, and the asphalt reflected the glow of the headlights like a mirror of light and solitude. João Silva, known among his colleagues as Foot on the Road, guided his truck with the calm of someone who had learned to converse with time. Each curve was a memory, each bridge a piece of history. For 20 years he had lived this way, between the rumble of the engine and the silence of the early morning. For João, driving wasn't a job. It was destiny. Inside the cab, João's small world held everything that mattered. A bottle of lukewarm coffee, a flashlight, a CB radio, and a photo of his son, still young. Sometimes he talked to himself, like someone having a conversation with the asphalt. "One more night, João. Just one more," he murmured, looking at the rearview mirror. On the road, time isn't measured in hours, but in kilometers and courage. The constant sound of the engine was the rhythm of his heart. His fellow drivers were faceless voices, but with a brother's soul. "Foot on the road, can you confirm the mountains stretch?" someone asked over the CB. "Confirmed, partner. All clear here," he replied, with the drawn-out accent of someone who had learned to live with the radio as company. The road, for João, was an endless line that connected people who might never meet, an invisible bond of solidarity made of horns, warnings, and respect. The sky began to darken, and the wind carried the smell of rain. João looked out the window and saw the first drops dancing on the glass. "A storm's coming," he thought, adjusting his cap and tightening his grip on the wheel. There was no fear in his eyes, only caution. He knew the road could be treacherous, but he also knew it was where his life made sense. As the truck continued cutting through the night, the radio played an old tune, and the coffee cooled on the dashboard. João took a deep breath and felt that heavy silence of someone who lives more with thoughts than with words. The asphalt seemed to speak to him in a language only truck drivers understand, and without realizing it, that ordinary trip was about to become the most remarkable of his life. The sky began to change color, as if the night were gaining weight. Dense clouds formed quickly, covering the stars and erasing the line of the horizon. The air grew colder, and the wind began to push the truck with force. João sensed the omen of the storm and tightened his grip on the wheel with both hands. "It's going to rain hard," he murmured, feeling the warning in his stomach even before the first drops. The rain came suddenly, like a steel curtain falling from the sky. The drops slammed against the windshield with violence, and the wipers could barely keep up. Visibility dropped to almost zero, and the rumble of the engine mixed with thunder tearing through the air. João slowed down and turned on the hazard lights. The road now seemed alive, a huge, unpredictable animal, breathing beneath the storm. On the CB radio, the voices of fellow drivers tried to stay steady amid the noise of the rain. "Mountain stretch flooding! Watch the shoulder!" a hoarse voice warned. João replied immediately, "Copy that, partner. Slowing down here." Even used to danger, he knew that stretch could turn into a trap in just a few minutes. Each curve was a gamble between experience and instinct. Inside the cab, the sound of the rain turned into a hypnotic rhythm. João kept his eyes fixed on the headlights, trying to make out what lay ahead. Sometimes he saw only shadows, reflections, silhouettes of trees dancing in the wind. Everything seemed to be moving. Everything felt like a warning. His heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of respect. On the road, those who lose focus don't come back. The radio crackled again, and a new voice, weak and distant, emerged through the static. It was different from the others, trembling, distressed, with a tone João recognized immediately: despair. He slowed down even more, his gaze tense, his body on alert. The rain had become a wall, and on the other side of it, something was about to happen. Amid the crackling of the CB radio, a faint voice came through, cut by the sound of the rain. It was a human voice, trembling, desperate. "Can anyone hear me? My car is going to fall," said the man on the other end. João's eyes widened, and he turned up the volume knob. "Say again, partner, where are you?" he replied, his heart racing at the same pace as the storm. The signal cut out, came back, failed again. With every word, the tension grew. "On the curve, after the bridge, the car slipped. There's a child with me," the man said between sobs and thunder. João straightened up in his seat, his eyes fixed on the darkness of the road ahead. There was no time to think, only to act. "Hold on there, buddy, don't move, I'm coming," he answered, already shifting gears with force. The truck roared like an awakened animal. The windshield wipers barely kept up with the weight of the water, and visibility was almost non-existent. Even so, João accelerated. The sound of the engine cut through the silence between the thunderclaps, and the headlights illuminated stretches of road that seemed to disappear beneath the storm. "Curve after the bridge," he repeated, trying to orient himself. Every second was an eternity, every kilometer a race against destiny. On the road, there were no sirens, no rescue teams. There was only one truck driver, a distant voice, and a decision. João knew that if he didn't arrive in time, that family could be taken by the rain. He clenched his teeth and spoke to himself, like someone praying. "Hang on, partner. I'm coming. Just a little more." The storm seemed to answer with thunder, as if testing his courage. The radio crackled again. The voice reappeared, weaker now. "Please. We're stuck. The front of the car is hanging. I don't know how long it will hold." João felt his blood run cold. He tightened his grip on the wheel, his gaze fixed on the invisible horizon. "I'm on my way, my friend. Hold tight. It's not going to end like this, not with me on this road." And with that promise, he plunged into the darkness, guided only by faith and headlights. The headlights sliced through the darkness like blades of light, revealing only fragments of the road. The storm now seemed alive, roaring against the truck as João pushed forward with determination. Suddenly, something different shimmered ahead, an unstable reflection flickering on the curve. João slowed down, and his heart pounded. There, just ahead, was a car stopped at an odd angle, tilted, with its lights flashing in desperation. He braked carefully, pulled the handbrake, and climbed down from the cab wearing his raincoat. Water lashed his face, the wind almost pushing him back. "Is anyone there?" he shouted, his voice fighting against the roar of the storm. A response came, weak and trembling. "Here, down here, we're trapped." João aimed his flashlight and saw it. The car was half suspended over the abyss, the rear wheels spinning in the air. Inside, a woman held a child. The man in the front seat tried to open the door without success. The fear on their faces was the pure image of helplessness. "Stay calm. Don't move. Stay still," João ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. Every step in the mud was a risk, the ground giving way beneath his feet. He approached slowly, assessing the angle of the car, the weight, the imminent danger. The scene felt outside of time. João knew that a wrong move could make everything collapse. He looked around, thought quickly, and decided he needed to use the truck. "I'm going to tie you to my rig. It can handle it," he said, more to himself than to them. He ran back to the cab, grabbed the tow cable, and secured one end to the truck's bumper. The other end he held firmly in his hands, his fingers trembling from the cold and the tension. The rain seemed to punish him on purpose, the wind pulling at the cable as if trying to tear it loose. Even so, João moved forward meter by meter until he reached the car. "Stay calm, I'm here," he said, his voice breathless, his body soaked. The woman's eyes met his, and in them was a silent plea for help. João took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest, and thought of only one thing: he would not let that family fall. João breathed deeply, feeling the weight of responsibility run through his body. The rain fell mercilessly, but he did not hesitate. He tied the end of the tow cable to the car's structure and tested its firmness with his own hands. The metal groaned, the cable snapped tight, but it held. "It's going to hold. It has to hold," he murmured. For a moment, he looked at the truck and thought that this machine would be, for the first time, more than transportation. It would be a lifeline. The man inside the car was shouting something, the woman was crying, and the child sobbed in her arms. João couldn't hear everything, but he understood the fear. "Calm down. It's going to work," he replied, even without being sure. With every movement, the car tilted more. He knew he had to act fast before the rain or the vehicle's weight defeated the cable. The wind pushed him, the mud slipped beneath his feet, but he did not back away. Pulling with all his strength, João braced his body, using the truck as an anchor. The cable stretched to its limit, vibrating like a bow about to snap. He felt the strain in his arms, his heart racing, his breath short. For a second, he thought the metal would give way, but the connection held. It was the kind of fight that isn't won with strength, it's won with soul. And his soul was all there, bound to that cable, along with the lives of 3 strangers. "Go! Try to open the door now," he shouted, and the man obeyed. The lock gave way with a loud crack, mixed with the sound of the rain. João ran over, grabbed the woman by the arm, and helped her out first. "Slowly, ma'am, hold on tight," he said, his voice breaking. The child was next, crying softly, clinging to his neck. Last came the man. Each one who got out was a breath of relief. When the last foot left the car, João heard the sharp snap of metal giving way. He looked back and saw the vehicle break free from the embankment, plunging into the abyss. For a moment, the world stopped. The sound of the impact came from far below, muffled by the storm. He dropped to his knees, exhausted, the rain washing over his face. The family was safe, and that was all that mattered. As he tried to catch his breath, João heard another sound approaching through the storm. Headlights cut through the darkness behind the truck, and soon a second rig stopped a few meters away. It was another truck driver, a sturdy man with a thick beard and a steady gaze. He jumped down, facing the wind, his raincoat open like a flag. "Foot on the road! Is that you, man? What's going on here?" he shouted, trying to be heard. João looked up, relieved. He recognized the voice. It was Zeca, an old road friend, a companion from the CB and from many late-night stories. "Family trapped, car fell down the embankment. I got them out, but the rig almost went with it," he replied, still out of breath. Zeca nodded, took in the scene, and didn't think twice. "Let's reinforce this before the road gives way," he said, running to the back of the truck to help. The two worked together without needing to say much. It was the kind of understanding only those who live the same profession can share. Zeca checked the ties, while João made sure the family was safe farther from the shoulder. "It's all right now, Mom. Stay here. The worst is over," he said, trying to convey calm, even as he trembled from cold and adrenaline. The boy looked at him with wide eyes, a mix of fear and admiration. The rain began to ease, but the wind still blew hard. Zeka and João looked at each other, their faces soaked and marked by exhaustion. "Man, if I hadn't passed through here just now, I wouldn't have seen a thing," Zeka remarked, wiping his face with his hand. João replied with a tired smile. "That's how the road is, partner. When it's meant to happen, fate finds a way for us to cross paths." It was true. Maybe none of it had been a coincidence. The two truck drivers stood in silence for a few seconds, staring at the abyss ahead. Down below, the wrecked car was a reminder of how fragile life on the road can be. João took a deep breath, placed a hand on Zeka's shoulder, and said calmly, "Thanks, brother. Today we held more than cargo. We held destiny." Zeka nodded, and together they walked back toward the family, their hearts lighter, though their hands were still trembling. The storm was beginning to ease, but João's heart was still pounding as if it were inside the flood. He looked at the woman and the child, both shaking from cold and shock. "It's all right now, Mom. The danger has passed," he said, his voice calm, though his eyes were still tense. The woman tried to thank him, but the words were lost in tears. João simply nodded, not wanting her to strain herself to speak. Zeka came over with a blanket he kept in his cab and handed it to the woman. "Wrap the little one up, miss. He's freezing," he said gently. The boy looked at João with curiosity and asked softly, "Mister, is the truck yours?" João smiled, even exhausted. "Yes, champ, and it's the one that saved you today." The child hugged him without saying a word, and for a moment, the sound of the rain seemed to turn into silence. The woman began to cry louder, as if all the fear she had held in until then finally found a way out. Her husband stepped forward and held out his hand to João. "If you hadn't come, I don't even know." João shook his hand firmly, looked him in the eyes, and replied simply, "We're in this road together, partner. Today it was me passing by, but it could have been any of us." There were no heroes there, just people with big hearts. Zeka watched everything in silence, leaning against the truck, his gaze distant. "I've seen a lot out on the road, but something like this is rare," he said, half to himself, half to the wind. João just shrugged. "The road teaches you to react before you think," he replied. And maybe that was it, reflex, instinct, and an invisible strength that only shows up when life is hanging by a thread. In the end, João helped everyone take shelter inside the cab, where there was some warmth and hot coffee. The boy fell asleep, leaning against his mother, while the father kept staring out the window, trying to grasp what had just happened. João took a deep breath, sat on the cab step, and looked toward the abyss, now covered in fog. He said nothing. He simply closed his eyes, letting the rain wash away the weight of the night. The rain slowly stopped, leaving only the sound of drops falling from the trees and the distant echo of thunder. The sky began to lighten, and a thin mist rose from the ravine. João stood up slowly, his legs heavy after so much tension. The woman watched him in silence, her eyes filled with tears and her body still trembling. Then, without saying a word, she stepped forward and hugged him tightly, as if thanking him with her soul. The embrace lasted longer than words could explain. It was the kind of gesture that carries all the fear, gratitude, and relief a person can feel at once. João, surprised, stood still for a second and then returned the hug, lightly patting her back. "It's all right now, miss. It's over," he murmured softly. When they pulled apart, her eyes said everything her voice couldn't. The husband, still in shock, stepped forward and extended his hand firmly with respect. "You saved my family. I don't know how to thank you." João slowly shook his head and replied simply, "On the road we help each other, partner. Today it was you. Tomorrow it could be me. That's how life goes." His words were sincere, spoken without vanity. There was no hero, only humanity. The boy woke up with the sound of the wind and looked at João, still drowsy. "Mister, did the car fall?" he asked innocently. João smiled faintly. "It did, but you're all fine, and that's what matters." The boy nodded, as if he understood more than he should, and hid again in his mother's arms. From a distance, Zeka watched the scene with a discreet smile and tearful eyes. For a moment, everyone remained silent. There was no more rain, no engine noise, no urgency, only the sound of breathing and the smell of wet earth. João looked toward the horizon and noticed the sky beginning to open. The sun, shy, emerged between the clouds, as if it too were breathing a sigh of relief. It was the end of the storm, but the beginning of a story he would never forget. Daybreak came slowly, as if the sun were afraid to break the silence after the storm. The sky, once grey and heavy, now took on shades of orange and gold. The wet road reflected the faint morning light, and the cold air carried with it the scent of earth and hope. João, leaning against the cab, watched that new beginning in silence. His body felt tired, but his heart was light. Inside the truck, the woman took care of her son, now wrapped in Zika's blanket. The boy, curious, looked out the window and smiled as he saw the sun appear. "Look, Mom, it stopped raining," he said softly, and the mother answered only with a sigh. The father, still looking shaken, sat beside João and stayed quiet for a while. Sometimes silence is the only way to say thank you. João opened the glove compartment and took out a small coffee thermos, still warm. He poured some for the man and some for himself. "It's strong, but it warms you up," he said with a slight smile. The man drank slowly, as if he needed that simple taste to remember he was alive. "You're a hero, you know that," he murmured. João smiled to himself. "No, partner. A hero is someone who doesn't turn his back. I just did what the road taught me." Zika appeared holding the CB radio, trying to adjust the signal. "I already called the highway patrol. Rescue is on the way," he informed. João nodded and looked toward the horizon. The sun was already higher, and the fog was beginning to lift. For the first time in hours, the asphalt looked safe again. There was a strange peace in that moment, as if everything urgent had finally passed. The three truck drivers, João, Zeka, and the child's father, stood side by side, watching the road. None of them spoke, but all knew that dawn carried a different meaning. It was more than the end of a storm. It was a quiet reminder that goodness still exists, even in the most forgotten places. And João, watching the sun rise, thought silently, "There are things we don't choose to live through, but that changes forever." The sun was already firm on the horizon when the sounds of the road began to return. Distant engines, birds on the fences, a light wind blowing. The highway patrol arrived, spoke with the family, took notes, and promised to send assistance to take them from there. João watched everything from a distance, leaning against the truck as he took the last sip of cold coffee. He was exhausted, but a discreet smile insisted on remaining. He knew that night, he had done more than transport cargo. He had transported lives. The woman approached slowly, holding her son's hand. "Mr. João, we will never forget what you did," she said, her eyes filled with tears. He simply raised his hand in a calming gesture. "No need to thank me, ma'am. The road is full of good people. Today it was me, but tomorrow it could be someone else. The important thing is never to pass by without looking to the side." The words came out simple, but full of truth. Zeka, with his cap crooked and a tired look, tapped João on the shoulder. "You're crazy, man, throwing the truck in like that. But what courage," he said. João laughed, that light laugh of someone who is alive. "Courage comes when you don't have time to think," he replied, opening the cab door. The two looked at each other with silent respect, not as co-workers, but as brothers of the road. As the family prepared to leave with the rescue team, João climbed into the cab and started the engine. The familiar rumble filled the air, like a sign that everything was returning to normal. He looked in the rearview mirror and saw the boy waving. "Bye, trucker uncle," the child shouted. João waved back and replied with a smile, "Go with God, champ, and take care of your road." The truck pulled away slowly, splashing water from the wet asphalt. The country music on the radio sounded softer, more beautiful. The sun reflected on the windshield, drawing a golden stripe across the dashboard. João took a deep breath and let a thought slip out loud. Another day conquered, another story to remember. The road opened ahead, long and endless like life, and he went on steady, being the same man as always, simple, quiet, and without knowing it, a true hero of the asphalt. And so João, foot on the road, continued his journey. He left the accident site behind, but carried with him something that didn't fit inside the cab. The memory of a gesture that changed lives. The asphalt dried, the sun shone again, but inside him remained the certainty that courage is not measured by strength, it's measured by the size of the heart. João didn't seek recognition or applause. He simply did what he believed was right. And perhaps that is what makes him so special. On every road there is a truck driver like João. Men and women who face storms, distances and solitude to keep the country moving. Some save lives, others simply help with a hazard light or a hot coffee at some roadside stop. But they all share something in common, the will to keep going, even when the road seems hard. And that is why these stories need to be told, because they show the best of us. If this story touched you, share it with someone who also believes in the value of kindness. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and help spread this message. The more people who hear it, the farther the road of solidarity will go. Every like, every share is like a headlight lit in the darkness, a sign that it's still worth believing. And remember, these stories don't end here. In the next video, you'll meet Zeca, the truck driver who became hope during a flood in the countryside of Paraná, another example of courage and empathy on Brazilian roads. Because the asphalt holds many stories, and we are here to tell them, one by one. If this story moved you, share it with someone who also believes in the power of kindness. These simple gestures help the road of good stories go farther and farther. And if you like this kind of content, real, human and inspiring stories, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any new episodes, and you'll help us continue carrying these voices and examples to the world. The road goes on. And if you're with us, it will never be lonely.